Verse 310. Truth consists in the 5 Dharmas and also the 3 Svabhavas. When the Yogin thus comprehends, he does not transgress Tathata. So the previous verse 309, took us to Tathata, and now we become established in it. And we become established in it through enlightenment practice. Now in verse 310, what we've got here is mention of a couple of lists, the 5 Dharmas and also the 3 Svabhavas. Now lists are a bit of a turn-off. There's a certain kind of mind that fetishizes lists. And when we get lists in this context, it's as if the discriminating mind has got carte blanche to run riot. And we have to watch out for this. There's quite a few of these lists coming up, and we have to look and see if they're of any value or not. And a lot of the time I think these lists are not of any value. But these ones here are. Professor Suzuki's actually written, truth consists in knowing the 5 Dharmas and the 3 Svabhavas. I missed that out because it's as if knowing these lists is somehow meritorious. There's nothing meritorious about being able to reel off the contents of a list. The 3 Svabhavas we've covered. There's videos dedicated to the Svabhavas. They themselves are an outline of enlightenment practice. There are 2 realities that we must navigate beyond to the 3rd reality. These 3 realities are the 3 Svabhavas. There's the reality of the external world, the reality of my inner world. There's a dynamic between these 2, but we must move beyond that. We move beyond that. We move beyond our moods and beliefs to truth rather than belief and misconceptions. So they've been covered at length, and they're also incorporated into this teaching of the 5 Dharmas. The 3 Svabhavas are actually part of the 5 Dharmas. And what are these 5 Dharmas? Well, this word Dharma, spelt here with a capital D, comes up quite a lot, and it's got many shades of meaning. Sometimes the meaning is of the teaching of the Buddha Dharma. Very often the word Dharma is used in the sense of a fundamental component, something atomic in nature. But here we can understand dharmas as the factors of enlightenment practice. So, it's not about just reeling off a list. It's about remembering to practice. And when we're practicing, we're actually knowing the 5 Dharmas. And knowing the 5 Dharmas, we don't transgress Tathata. In other words, knowing these 5 Dharmas, we're practicing abiding in suchness. So these 5 Dharmas are yet another way of reminding us to practice. They spell out our practice. So what are these 5 Dharmas? Well, the 5 Dharmas are actually spelled out in some detail in the main body of the text in section 83, which is part of chapter 6 in the main body of the Lankavatara Sutra. And I think it's worth going into this. It's always nice to have an excuse, an opportunity to delve into the main body of the text, rather than just go along with this verse summary, which is what this series of videos is actually about, the verse summary of the Lankavatara Sutra. So I think it might be worth devoting a video in itself to this. But I think I should just mention what these 5 dharmas are, and then you can decide whether you want to skip the next video or not. The 5 dharmas, they address our situation first of all. The first 3 factors, the first 3 dharmas, are those factors which actually we have to acknowledge and we have to extricate ourselves from. They are name, form, and discrimination. These are the first 3 dharmas: name, form, and discrimination. This is the process which most of us are caught up with most of the time. Something attracts the attention. That's the form. We give it a name, and we discriminate it as an entity, separate from everything else. This cup catches your attention. This is your name and form. I bring it into the video. I have a little sip of the coffee. It's a bit of an intrusion, isn't it? It's got its own form, its own identity. And it's got coffee in it. Yummy. So this is name, form, and discrimination. It's all going on there. There's a cup with coffee. It's got its shape, it's got its colour, but the coffee's also got its taste, its smell, and there are feelings. Feelings of satisfaction. So this is going on all the time. This is what we're caught up in. Can we step back from it? Well, how do we know all this? How do we know all this is going on? How do we know it is as I've just described it? Because there's awareness. There's awareness. And realizing this is the next dharma. This is right knowledge. Right knowledge isn't about knowing what is right and what is wrong. It's about recognizing what underpins everything. What underpins all knowledge. It's awareness. And if we come back to that awareness, then we know the 5th dharma. The 5th dharma is suchness. This is Tathata. So this is the dynamic of spiritual practice, of enlightenment practice once again. It's a very useful understanding. Perhaps you've managed to follow me through this list and come back to realization of the awareness which is hearing this. And you can appreciate then that these 5 dharmas are indeed the 5 factors of enlightenment practice. And they're not simply some mere list to be rattled off and written about in academic journals. So we'll look at this in more detail in the next video when I look into section 83 of the Lankavatara Sutra.